We are back for episode number 2 of NHL Deal or No Deal. You guys really seem to like the first episode. We got around 70 comments on the post where I said to comment your mock trades down below, so don't be upset if your comment isn't featured in this episode because there's going to be plenty more, and I just couldn't fit all 70 in the video, or the video would be around an hour long, so I just chose my favorite ones, and that is how we're going to do it. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. The first one here comes from I Don't Give Kachuk. He's a good friend of mine. I'm going to link his YouTube channel down in the description of this video, so make sure to go check it out. Subscribe to him, but he says James Reimer, Heponiemi, a 2019 first, a 2020 second, Derek Brassard, and a conditional 4th round pick for Sergei Bobrovsky. Now obviously this is a pretty realistic one because Sergei Bobrovsky I'm pretty sure is going to be traded before the deadline. If not, then I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed he's going to walk away in free agency, so that's why I think the Blue Jackets should trade him, because you don't just want to let him walk away and get nothing in return for obviously one of the best goaltenders in the entire NHL. So you'd be getting back James Reimer, who would most likely just be your backup because Korpisalo will probably take over that starting spot. But then the big piece in this trade is Heponiemi. He's a 20-year-old. He was drafted in the second round, 40th overall, I believe, by the Panthers in the 2017 draft. And this year he's playing in the Liga where he's around a point per game. So he's a very promising young prospect, and he did really good in the World Juniors for Team Finland. So that'd be a big piece. And then obviously the 2019 first round pick, the 2020 second, Brassard, and a conditional 4th. I honestly think that's some pretty good value for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And if this is the best offer they would get back for Bobrovsky around the deadline, I definitely would accept it because you don't want to let him walk for free. So I actually do like this trade. I'm going to say deal for both sides. This next one comes from Adrian. He says the Leafs acquire Jared Spurgeon, Minnesota gets back Nikita Zaitsev, Connor Brown, a conditional 2020 second round pick, and it becomes a first if the Leafs win the Cup in 2019. Now obviously that would have to be a 2020 first round pick because the Leafs traded their 2019 first rounder in the Jake Muzzin trade, but this is an interesting one. I think Jared Spurgeon would be a really nice fit for the Toronto Maple Leafs, giving up Nikita Zaitsev, who has been pretty bad this year and obviously really bad last year. Connor Brown would probably be the main piece of this trade because he's a pretty good young forward. He would definitely help the depth of the Minnesota Wild for sure. And then obviously there's a good chance that conditional 2020 second could turn into the first because the Leafs do have a pretty good shot at winning the Stanley Cup. So I like this trade a lot. I'm not really sure if Minnesota's getting a lot back for Jared Spurgeon because he really is a big part of their team. Obviously, Nikita Zaitsev is still relatively young, so he can get better, but he just, his trade value isn't really high just because of how he's been playing over the past couple of seasons, so I'm not sure how I feel about this trade. I honestly would probably have to say no, but it's close, but I like the idea, but I'm going to have to say no. This next one comes from Johnny Hockey 21. He's been commenting on the videos for a very long time now. He's been a fan for a while, so shout out to you. And he says Matt Duchene to the Islanders for Oliver Wahlstrom, Ryan Pulock, a 2019 first rounder, and a 2020 second rounder. Now this is a lot. The Islanders will be giving up a lot. Obviously they drafted Wahlstrom and Dobson back-to-back in this previous draft. And Ryan Pulock is a pretty promising young defenseman. He's been their best defenseman this year. He's 24 years old, and I think he's very, very solid. And then obviously the 29 first rounder, which is probably going to be a late first round pick if the New York Islanders do keep up the way they are playing. And this is an interesting one because Matt Duchene definitely could give them that added boost of offensive firepower because they don't really have a star player now that John Tavares left. They kind of just have a collective effort of guys that all just give it their all every night, and that's what makes them so successful. So this is a pretty interesting one, but honestly, I'm going to have to say no for the New York Islanders just because I wouldn't want to mess up anything that they have going for them right now. I think Pulock is a huge part of that team, and Oliver Wahlstrom I think is going to turn into a very, very good goal scorer. So I'm going to have to say no from the New York Islanders standpoint, but I definitely like the idea of this trade, getting some help in New York, but I'm going to have to say no. This next trade comes from the Canadian Gamers. He says Edmonton trades away Tyler Benson, Brandon Manning, a 2021 second round pick, and a 2019 sixth round pick, and Ottawa in return gives the Oilers Ryan Dzingel. Now I like this trade a lot because it gives some offensive help and offensive depth to the Edmonton Oilers. Tyler Benson is looking like he's going to be a pretty decent NHL player, but I'm not really sure what his potential is. I don't really see him becoming a star player. Brandon Manning, I don't even think Edmonton should have got him in the first place, so I'm definitely not opposed to them getting rid of him. And then a 2021 second and a 2019 sixth round pick just to, put some icing on the cake. And I like this trade a lot. I'm going to say yes. Honestly, Ottawa, you're getting a nice young prospect in return, and that's kind of the direction that the Ottawa Senators are going. At Edmonton, they need all the help they can get up front for Connor McDavid, so I like this trade from both ways. I'm going to have to say yes on this one. This next trade comes from Jonathan. He says, Artemi Panarin to Nashville for Eli Tolvanen and a first-round pick. Now, this trade would be good for Nashville if Panarin was under contract, but I'm going to say no just because you risk giving up your best prospect and then the first-round pick and really only having a rental because Artemi Panarin has came out and said he is going to test free agency. You only get to do that once, so I think that's too big of a risk. And Eli Tolvanen, obviously, he hasn't really had the year that people expected him to, but I still think he's going to be a very solid NHL player. So I'm going to say no from Nashville's standpoint just because I think it's a huge risk to give up your best prospect and a first-round pick for a player that you don't even know is going to re-sign. That's why I'm going to say no, but I definitely like the idea of the trade if there were to be like a sign-and-trade worked out. But like I said, Panarin has said he's going to test free agency, so for that reason, I'm going to have to say no. This next one comes from Shepard, and he says Nyquist also retained salary and Nick Jensen to the Edmonton Oilers for Jesse Puljujarvi and a second-round pick. Now, if I'm Detroit, I'm taking this right away. I'm a huge fan of Gustav Nyquist and everything, but I think if you're getting a prospect back like Jesse Puljujarvi, who was a 4th overall pick, and I definitely think he still is very promising, it's just not the ideal situation for him in Edmonton, and it seems like it goes like that for a lot of prospects that go through that organization. But I honestly don't know if the Oilers should give up this much just to get Nyquist and Jensen, so it's going to be interesting to see if they actually do end up trying to get McDavid some help and using Jesse Puljujarvi to do that at the trade deadline. But if I'm Detroit, I'm taking this trade. But if I'm Edmonton, do I really want to give up Jesse Puljujarvi and a second-round pick for Gustav Nyquist and Nick Jensen? Nyquist obviously could be a rental because he is an up-and-coming unrestricted free agent, so I think that one's a little bit tough. If I'm Detroit, I'm taking this trade right away, but I can't really decide if I'm Edmonton from their standpoint. So honestly, I'm going to have to say no to this from looking at it from Edmonton's perspective, but if the trade was offered to Detroit from Edmonton, I would definitely take it right away. This next trade comes from Chris S, and he says Gustav Nyquist to Nashville for their 2019 first-round pick. I'm going to have to say no to this from a Detroit standpoint because Nyquist is around a point per game this year, and they have came out and said they want a prospect and a first-rounder for him, so I definitely think they could get a little bit more than this, obviously, on the trade market. But for Nashville, I think this would be great. Maybe if they were to throw in a young, decent prospect, obviously not a guy like Eli Tolvanen, but just a decent young prospect to go along with this, then I would probably consider taking it. But basically, that 2019 first is probably an early second-round pick because Nashville is going to finish towards the top of the league. So for right now, I'm going to have to say no to this, but I definitely think with some tweaking here and there, this trade could definitely work. Next trade comes from S.R. Gonzo. He says Stars acquire forward Artemi Panarin for Julius Honka, first-round pick in 2019, a second-round pick for 2019, and a second-round pick for 2020. Now, I honestly like this trade a lot. I'm not sure if I like it more than the other Artemi Panarin trade where they would get Eli Tolvanen back, but like I said, it is only a rental, so you're taking that risk. But I definitely think the Stars aren't giving up too much where, you know, if he doesn't re-sign, their franchise is just going to be going in a totally different direction. So I honestly like this trade, and if I'm Columbus, I would probably consider taking it just because of the fact that you don't know if he's coming back, and I'm pretty sure it's almost guaranteed that he's going to leave. I think he will be a Florida Panther if he does hit the open market on free agency, so I actually do like this trade a lot for both sides. Julius Honka is a pretty decent young defenseman, and then obviously a plethora of draft picks would be huge to get back in return for Panarin, so I like this trade a lot for both sides, and I'm actually going to say yes. This next one comes from Nicholas. He says, so I've heard rumors that say Florida and Columbus are looking to do a trade involving Panarin, Bobrovsky, and Huberdeau. My guess is Bobrovsky and Panarin in exchange for Huberdeau, Reimer, and Florida's first rounder. Maybe even add that 4th or 5th round pick on Florida's side. I don't really know about this one. It's kind of up in the air because Columbus, like I said many times in this video, because these guys' names have popped up a lot of times in this video, I think they're going to lose them in free agency, so getting something back and getting Jonathan Huberdeau, he is a star caliber player, and I think you probably need to get that back. Maybe they don't just want a young prospect, they probably want a really solid NHL player right now. So I really do like this trade for Columbus, and I honestly do like it for Florida as well because I think they have a really good shot at re-signing both Panarin and Bobrovsky. So this is an interesting one. Obviously Columbus doesn't have much leverage in trade talks when it comes to Panarin and Bobrovsky just because people know that they're probably going to lose them for nothing, and they don't just want to offer up so much because they know they have a chance of getting them in free agency. So especially for Florida's sake, because I think if they hit free agency, there's a good chance they both could become members of the Florida Panthers. But for right now, I honestly like the look of this trade for both ways. I'm going to say yes. Obviously, I think Florida is winning this trade 100%, but like I said, Columbus has to get something back. They can't just let these two star players walk for nothing. That's why I would say yes. It's a pretty unfair deal, but Columbus really doesn't have much leverage in these trade talks. And finally, the last trade in today's video comes from the 102 Go. He says Stone and Duchesne to Vegas for Cody Glass, a first-round pick, and Alex Tuch. I'm going to say no to this from Vegas' side. Kind of like the Panarin and Bobrovsky situation. Stone and Duchesne are both upcoming unrestricted free agents. And Vegas, you're giving up a lot. I think McPhee definitely wants to hold on to Cody Glass. I think he's going to be a major part of their future. And then a first-round pick, obviously, is going to turn into a pretty solid prospect. And Alex Tuch has been Vegas' best offensive producer this season, and he's still young. So I think they want to hold on to him as well. So I'm honestly going to say no to this from Vegas' side. Getting Stone and Duchesne as potential rentals definitely would be an all-in for a Stanley Cup push move. I don't think McPhee's going to rush it like that. I think he's going to hold on to his young players in Tuch and Glass, so I'm going to have to say no to this trade. So that is going to wrap up episode 2 of NHL Deal or No Deal. Make sure to let me know down in the comment section if you want me to make this like a weekly thing, or how many more episodes you want me to do of this. And like I said, don't get upset if your comment wasn't featured. There's going to be many more opportunities. I couldn't fit all 70, but I definitely think you guys still like this series a lot. So with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content. And I will see you guys all in the next video.